Good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020. And today I want to talk a little bit about Terraform on Linode and some little projects I've been working on over my little vacation time. So so I host my website, which you may or may not be on. It's a static website, and there's a couple problems. One was I was hosting a number of static websites on a specific Linode instance, and I had added HTTPS to one of them, and because they were all named virtual named hosts, there was a problem where if somebody tried to visit MikeZornick.com and they were using a browser widget of some type to force HTTPS, it would fail because I wasn't doing HTTPS for MikeZornick.com. And instead, it would try to load the one for guildflow.com, and that would cause a security warning because the names didn't match. Anyway, as to why I didn't do HTTPS on MikeZornick.com, part of it was because I was against the idea that like every website should be HTTPS. I'm obviously I have nothing against HTTPS encryption to keep people's personal information private and stuff. But like when you have just like a website which is just like static articles and it's just it's just publishing those static articles. I thought HTTPS was a bit overkill, and so I've kind of fought it in the beginning, but it's been tough for anyway. I don't want to get rambly about that, but the point being that that was a problem. The other problem was the Linode that was serving up the static website was built with Ubuntu 16.04 LTS, which I believe is going to be end of life around April 30th of 2021. And so it would be nice to kind of get it on a newer LTS version. And then thirdly, and more important to the topic of this video, is this could be a good opportunity to experiment with Terraform, which is something that I've been trying to get more familiar with in my work that I do with Elixir. Being able to orchestrate larger, complex server infrastructure is a need. And so Terraform is a tool that can help you accomplish that. So basically, yeah, Terraform is a tool that you use to declaratively declare the infrastructure you want, and then Terraform will dynamically make that happen. And so the way it works is you kind of create a lot of resources. You say who your provider is, Linode or AWS or somebody else, Google, Azure. And then you write your code, you apply it, and then later you can make changes to your infrastructure code, and then you can apply that. And then, Terraform's, smart to only change the things that need to be changed, or, upgrade the RAM and not have to pull down the entire Linode and things like that. It's a really cool tool. It's definitely overkill for this project, but it's mostly a learning exercise, so I think that's fine. So a little history, I guess, really quick about the private website, or the private MikeZornick.com. So it's a static website. I use Hugo to help build it out. So Hugo is a static site generator written in Golang. It's really fast. It's really fully featured. The repo for my personal website is on GitHub, so you can check it out. It's all public. And I use Circle CI to do the deployment. And so you can actually check out the Circle CI configuration file that I have. It's pretty basic. Basically, it checks out the repo, runs Hugo to generate the static site with production. It uses HTML proofer to do a little basic cleaning, not cleaning, but kind of verification that links work and things. Then it does some SSH stuff and does the deploy with rsync. And so it just rsyncs the entire static generated site to a server somewhere, specifically for the purposes of this stuff, Linode. So to get started here, I got a bunch of resources which we can talk about. Specifically, there are some Linode specific tutorials. that are a great starting point if you're interested in this. To kind of like, you can go through the beginner's guide, which I did. That'll have you building a couple boxes and pulling them down really fast. That'll get you kind of comfortable with things. Other resources include links to the Linode API. So as you are writing your Terraform scripts, you will want to know things like the different types of Linodes that are available and the different regions. And if you ever need to reference those are available via the API. The Terraform book is a good resource. This is one that I picked up based off of a recommendation of a friend. And I read probably the first, I think, 5 chapters. I didn't read the last 2 chapters because they were starting to get advanced, and I kind of just wanted to get my hands dirty. But it's definitely good. It's an independent book, so you can buy it, and you get like a nice PDF and different stuff. So there's the documentation to the specific Linode provider on Terraform, and we'll show you some of the code that I wrote. But if you're ever looking for information on the specific docs, those are linked there as well. Then there's a link to the Linode community questions, which I found some helpful information for. Some information on Certbot, which we'll talk about in a second, and managing multiple SSH keys. So anyway, those are the resources. You can check them out later. I wanted to kind of walk through a little bit of the Terraform script that I wrote for my website. So it starts off by declaring the provider. So we are deploying to Linode, so our provider is Linode. And the thing that you need to supply it for, like credentials, is your token, your API token, which you can get, within your Linode account pane. Then we basically declare 3 resources, and these resources are intertwined. They relate on each other, and Terraform is smart enough to kind of figure out where the relations are. You kind of just declare them on a single level. But specifically, we're going to upload an SSH key, a stack script, and then we're going to do the instance itself. So the SSH key, this was, again, something part of like the learning experience, but I created a specific SSH key for this specific purpose. And so I generated that. That's in my home folder, and so I'm kind of referencing it here. Linode SSH keys are legit like resources on the Linode site. So this is the Linode dashboard, and if you go under your account and SSH, you'll see there are different SSH keys. You'll also see the stack scripts, which we'll talk about in a second, and then your Linode instances. But yeah, so that's one resource because we're going to use that within our server. So it's kind of nice to just upload it there. Then we've got our stack script. And so Linode, in a Linode nomenclature, a stack script is a script that you can use to kind of set up a fresh Linode instance. There's a lot of community stack scripts, so you can, like, if you need to build a standard, Apache, MySQL, PHP, type of server or whatever, there's a bunch of scripts out there you can reference. This one specifically is going to be private, and that's why is public is false, because this is just one that's relative to me. Yeah, the label set up Xornic, and then so it's got script equals file, and it is setup.sh. So I'm going to jump to the bottom really quick and just kind of give you a quick tour about what this looks like. So after the Linode is set up, it first puts bash in a kind of strict mode, which was something new to me, but this will basically force bash to fail the first moment it kind of encounters an error, which is not like the default behavior for bash. So like if you have like a variable or something that like there's a typo, without this, bash will continue to kind of like try to do all of the commands, but you probably don't want that. You probably want it to fail early in the process, and so that strict mode is kind of nice. The second command here is for putting the output of this execution into a log file. So one of the things that was like I learned through this process was like after you use Terraform to create the infrastructure, Linode will kick off the stack script, but that takes a while to actually execute. And so even though Terraform will tell you, you know, the hardware is ready, the hardware is still executing the stack script. And so what I found myself doing was I would set up the hardware and then I'd SSH in, and then I would observe um, the, uh, the log file, um, and that would help me kind of figure out like, well, what's it doing? And you can see at the very bottom I put all done. So if I saw all done in the log file, then I knew that everything scripted actually executed. So so we create a fully qualified domain name. Uh, then we set our host name to it. We run apt update, apt upgrade. We install Nginx. Then we all install Snap. Snap is something that's new to me. I don't really use Snap that much, but certbot, which is what I'll be using to create the SSL certificate, prefers Snap for this distro. So I think actually Snap's already installed, but installing core and then refreshing core is kind of what certbot asked for. So that's what I'm doing. I install snapbot, or I'm sorry, I install snap, then I install certbot. I did originally have the intention to use certbot right during the setup procedure. That turned out not to really be available because to create the SSL cert with like a really simple call, the domain kind of has to already be pointing at the Linode instance. And so I commented this out and ran this manually after the fact, after I kind of rejiggered the domain names. Um, there's, if in a more orchestrated setup where I would be actually orchestrating the domain name change, um, you could probably do this, but anyway, that's why it's commented out. Then I start Nginx, and then I do all done. The only other thing I'll say too is when this finishes, because we ran update and upgrade, there probably are going to be a couple security updates that need a full reboot to be installed. So I think once the infrastructure is set up and your script is finished, it is probably a good idea to restart your Linode instance just to kind of make sure the security can get installed and all your services are running off of a cold boot. But anyway, those are the first two Terraform resources, and then we get to the main one, which is the instance itself. And so this is going to be using the Ubuntu 20.04. This is LTS, even though it doesn't say LTS. And then we're going to create it in US East. We're just going to use the lowest $5 a month Linode type. That's plenty for a static website like this. Then we're going to reference the resource we created above. So we're going to pass in the SSH key into the authorized key. This is going to allow me to log in without using a password. As far as root passwords, I created one, a specific one. It is not ABC123. But if you want to, you can actually leave this line or comment this line out or remove it, and the root password will be initialized as a random password, which I don't think you're going to be able to get. At least that wasn't obvious to me, but I might be wrong about that. I also turn on backups, so Linode's got a really great backup service where you just check a box and it automatically will back up your Linode, relatively consistently. And then I referenced the stack script ID. So for this script that I have uploaded to stack script, it'll execute that on the specific Linode instance. Then I also have a section here at the bottom called outputs. And so this is a place where you can kind of capture data that you can then easily reference on the command line. So as you can see, for me, after Terraform, after you apply Terraform apply and you apply this to Linode, you can run ssh root at, and then I use fish, so there's no dollar sign there, but normally I think you'd have a dollar sign before the parentheses for bash, but I use fish locally as a console shell. So this just will grab the server IP from the output and kind of put it right into the command for me. And yeah, and so that's like how I would connect, and that's how I would observe the script, which I think there's a command there, which I'll add to the blog post. But yeah, so what else is there to say? So in the one I did talk about managing multiple SSH keys. So by uploading this, I did have to be a little bit more aware of how SSH works with regard to multiple keys. And so that basically comes down to inside of your SSH config file, you'll generally have to have different hosts, and you will kind of point those specific hosts to very specific identity files. That was just kind of new to me. It's not really that crazy, but it is, something I kind of learned. The only other thing I would really bring up, I guess, is so like I did Terraform, and then I updated my Circle CI stuff to point to the new machine. And that took a little bit of work because you have to kind of do some, sharing of SSH keys so a Circle CI deployment can actively access the Linode instance. And so this isn't a true like orchestration of infrastructure. It would not be terribly easy for me to like hit Terraform destroy and then Terraform apply. There was still some like handcrafted stuff in this setup. I mentioned, doing certbot after I kind of switched the domains over more manually, and then the Circle CI stuff. But it was a good, I think, taste for how Terraform works and so forth. And so, ultimately, I need to kind of make some decisions about guild flow, which is one of the main, I guess, potential uses of Terraform for me in the near future. Right now, Guildflow uses Linode, but it is a very kind of handcrafted deployment story. And so looking to add some automation to that, I think would be of value. But I also think that most of the value that I add to Guildflow is within the business and the customer like feature set. And so there's also some experimentation I'm doing with services like GigaLexer, which is a kind of like a Heroku-like environment that is built just for, well, it's not built just for, but it's built to support Elixir applications and the rich deployment features of Elixir. And assuming that that works well, I may in fact lean on that more than my own Terraform, Docker kind of like setup. But I don't think, even if I do go that direction with GoFlow, I don't think this Terraform experiment was without value. I learned a lot, and in my own consulting work, I'm sure it'll kind of come up here and there. And yeah, and so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed sharing my notes. Hopefully that was of value to somebody out there. If you have any questions, you can definitely ask me, although I am kind of basic, so you might want to lean on those resources more than my brain. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Have a good holiday. Have a good New Year. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.